Today, we are going to discuss about loving kindness, metta, in Theravada Buddhism. Lord Gautama Buddha described four wholesome and positive virtues or mental qualities called divine abodes or Brahma Viharas. Now, when one practices these four positive qualities, it can lead to one's positive emotional health, happiness, and rewarding social relationships. And it can also contribute to one's spiritual development. And the four divine abodes or Brahma Viharas are loving kindness, metta, compassion, karuna, sympathetic joy, mudita, and equanimity, upekha. Now, Brahmas are celestial beings who exist in what are called Brahma worlds. And it is said that these Brahmas have these four qualities in abundance. But here, Brahma means superior divine qualities. And Vihara means a dwelling place. So Brahma Vihara means these four qualities as dwelling places. And all the four qualities exist inherently in the human mind, but they function at different levels depending on how much one practices and cultivates them. And they are also known as limitless and immeasurable qualities. The four Brahma Viharas existed in India before the appearance of Lord Gautama Buddha. But then people were practicing it during meditation in order to attain deep mental absorptions called jhana and then have a rebirth in one of those Brahma worlds. The Buddha adapted and reinterpreted the same four Brahma Viharas so that one could use it during one's Buddhist path of liberation. Now, the word metta comes from the word mitta in the Pali language. Now, the mitta in Pali means friend. But here it becomes metta, meaning benevolence, friendliness, goodwill, amity, non-violence, or loving kindness. Now, when we refer to the word loving in loving kindness, it does not refer to the love based on affection, craving, or attachment. Because this ordinary love can be sensual and emotional, and it's also sentimental and selective to certain people, not to everybody. And there is also a degree of attachment and selfishness when one expresses this normal love. But on the other hand, this metta, loving kindness, is altruistic love, and it is unconditional love to all sentient beings. And when one expresses loving kindness, one has no ulterior motives and one does not expect anything in return. Now, loving kindness can be the perfect antidote to negative feelings such as resentment, anger, ill will, and hatred. In a discourse called Agatha Vinaya Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya, which is a collection of the Buddha's numerical discourses, Buddha said that when one has anger, ill will, hatred towards someone else, one could manage it by expressing loving kindness, compassion, and equanimity towards that person. And in a book called Itivuttaka, that contains Buddha's sayings and is one of the 15 books of Khuddaka Nikaya, the collection of the Buddha's minor discourses, the Buddha said that expressing loving kindness to all sentient beings is more advantageous than any other meritorial actions. And in a discourse called Karaniya Metta Sutta, that's again in the Sutta Nipata of the Khuddaka Nikaya, the Buddha showed us how we should express our loving kindness. Buddha said, just as a mother would risk her life to protect her only child, even so should one cultivate limitless loving kindness to all beings. And in the book called Dhammapada, which is one of the 15 books of the Khuddaka Nikaya, that contains 423 verses said by the Buddha. The verse 5 is like this. Nahi verena verani sammantida kudachanam averena cha sammanti esa dhammo sanantano. Hatred never ceases through hatred in this world. Through love alone they cease. This is an eternal law. Now, Lord Gautama Buddha, when he was a Buddha aspirant, a Bodhisattva, has perfected certain qualities called paramis over an incalculable period of time. And one of those perfections or positive qualities was loving kindness, metta. Now, loving kindness and compassion sound similar, but they are not the same. There are certain differences between the two. Now, loving kindness is universal, unconditional, and limitless love to all sentient beings. And one need not feel much empathy for someone to be in any distress when one expresses loving kindness. And when one expresses loving kindness, it naturally has a positive effect on the person who is expressing it by eliminating any negative mental qualities such as resentment, ill will, and hatred. On the other hand, compassion needs a degree of empathy towards someone who is experiencing some physical or mental distress. And one needs to be able to empathize with that person in distress as if that distress is one's own. And of course, loving kindness is helpful in expressing compassion. Now, there is a technique of meditation based on loving kindness, and that is called metta bhavana. And metta bhavana can be practiced to develop tranquility and concentration of the mind. There are 5 mental hindrances or mental defilements that can hinder one's meditation process when one starts meditating on a chosen meditation objects. And when one develops concentration of the mind through meditation on loving kindness, these 5 mental hindrances can get gradually suppressed. And the 5 mental hindrances are sensual desire, kama chanda, ill will, vyapada, sloth and torpor, tinamidda, restlessness and remorse, uddhacha kukkucha, and skeptical doubt, vichikicha. Now, when one develops a concentrated mind through the meditation of loving kindness, one can use that concentrated mind to practice insight meditation or vipassana bhavana to gain an insight and wisdom into the 3 universal characteristics of all phenomena in this universe. And that is, everything is impermanent, anicca, everything leads to suffering, dukkha, and none of them has any stable entity called self, anatta. And when one develops insight into these characteristics, it is possible for one to gain enlightenment. Now, in a discourse called Kakachupama Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya, which is a collection of the Buddha's middle-length discourses, the Buddha said that if one faces evil verbal or physical actions of another person, one should not show any anger, ill will, or aversion. And Buddha said it is possible for someone to talk to you in any of 5 ways. The words that one used may be either timely or untimely, true or false, affectionate or harsh, beneficial or unbeneficial, and with a mind of goodwill or inner hate. But whatever it is, one should remain unaffected with no anger or bad words. And one should also show loving kindness to that person as well as to all the sentient beings. Now, let us briefly look at loving kindness meditation, metta bhavana. Now, the aim of metta bhavana is to send unconditional, altruistic love and positive feelings to all living beings in the universe, expecting nothing in return. And loving kindness is one of 40 meditation objects that are suitable for concentration meditation. And it's also one of the 4 protective or guardian meditations. Now, the other 3 protective meditations are reflecting on the Buddha's qualities, Buddhanussati bhavana, contemplating on 32 loathsome body parts, Asubha bhavana, and reflecting on death, Marananussati bhavana. Now, when one meditates, if the mental hindrance of ill will, vyapada, appears in the mind, one could practice loving kindness meditation for a short while to get rid of that mental hindrance. And meditating on loving kindness is also a meritorious act that can bring good merits, which can lead to positive results, including a good rebirth in the future. Now, one good thing with loving kindness meditation is that it can be practiced anywhere in any posture, sitting, standing, walking, or lying down. When we practice loving kindness meditation, we are advised first to express loving kindness or metta towards oneself and then spread to others. Now, when one expresses loving kindness to oneself, one could repeat certain phrases, either verbally or mentally, such as, may I be free from enmity, may I be free from ill will, may I be free from suffering, may I be happy. Or one could say, may I be safe, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be peaceful. And when one expresses loving kindness to another person, one could repeat, may you be free from enmity, may you be free from ill will, may you be free from suffering, may you be happy. Or may you be safe, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be peaceful. Or if one is expressing loving kindness to all living beings in the universe, one could repeat this. May all beings be free from enmity. May all beings be free from ill will. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be happy. Or one could say, may all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Now, there are certain techniques that one could use in practicing metta bhavana. And one technique is to first extend loving kindness to oneself and then extend it to a benefactor, someone like one's teacher, and then to a familiar and dear person, and then to a neutral person, followed by a hostile person, and finally, loving kindness to all living beings in the universe. Now, there is another directional technique. Again, one directs loving kindness to oneself first, and then extend loving kindness to all living beings in the 10 geographical directions. So, loving kindness to all living beings in the north, south, east, west, northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, and above and below. Now, there is another directional technique. In this technique, again, one first directs loving kindness to oneself and then extend loving kindness to all living beings in an expanding order of geographical locations. So one begins with expressing loving kindness to all beings in one's residence and then gradually extend it to all beings in the neighborhood, in one's village or town, county, state or province, the country, continent, whole world, and the universe. Now, when one practices loving kindness, one needs to be careful to recognize two enemies that can appear in the mind. One is a far enemy, the other one is a near enemy. The far enemy is anger, ill will, or aversion, and that is easy enough to identify and get rid of. But it is more difficult to identify the near enemy, and that is conditional love that can appear in the disguise of loving kindness. And that conditional love is selfish and sentimental, and it is expressed for one's own gratification or expecting to gain something in return. In the Karaniya Metta Sutta, the Buddha gave instructions as to how one should extend loving kindness to others. Buddha said one should express loving kindness to whatever living creatures there be without exception, whether they are weak or strong, long, huge or middle-sized, short, minute or bulky, whether they are visible or invisible, those who are living far or near, and those living beings who are already born or who are yet to be born, may all beings be happy. And Buddha also instructed us to practice loving kindness in all the four postures: standing, walking, sitting, lying, and also as long as we are awake. In a discourse called Metta Samsa Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha described 11 benefits of regularly practicing loving kindness meditation. When one practices loving kindness meditation, one sleeps happily and wakes up happily. One sees no bad dreams. One is dear to humans and non-humans. One will be protected by the deities. Things like fire, poison, and weapons may not harm one. When one meditates, one's mind easily concentrates. One's appearance becomes serene. And at the time of the death, one can die with an unconfused mind. And if one is not enlightened during that birth, one can be reborn in one of the Brahma worlds as a result of practicing Metta Bhavana. Now, ideally, one should not limit loving kindness to loving kindness meditation alone. One should be able to express loving kindness in one's speech as well as one's behavior during one's day-to-day life with all the others. So when one practices loving kindness genuinely and consistently, it should ideally become one's way of life. Thank you very much.